I got a comment from an audience member, and this whole Black Myth Wukong thing is starting to have people convinced that, you know, PlayStation money hatted the game. Because if it wasn't for the leadership in PlayStation actually saying that they supported the game outrightly in this PlayStation blog, Leadership Spotlight, with their Senior Vice Partner, Global Partner, Development and Relations, Phil Rosenberg, where he talks about his team, which consists of two individuals, a Sean Benson and a Christian Svensson. That's literally their names. And their job is to go around and find out these gems of games and work with them. And he even cites other games that they work with, such as Stray, which was an exclusive for the console, Genshin Impact, Stellar Blade, and he also cites Black Myth Wukong. So, after this is said and done, some people are finally coming around to see what's going on. Some people even tried to claim that this was basically because they needed technical help and Xbox did not send any engineers. But if you go and look up Sean Benson and Christian Svensson, you'll realize that these two are actually in the content acquisition part of PlayStation. Their job is not engineering. Their job is to go out there and find content that PlayStation would acquire. In fact, if you look up Christian Svensson's Twitter right here, he's the VP, head of second party / third party content ventures and strategic incentives at PlayStation. This is the gentleman that is in charge of the Spec Ops team that goes out there and acquires content. In fact, he even retweeted something that Zubitech tweeted back in February 20th. I'm telling you, this is a huge deal, ladies and gentlemen, because it's very interesting. Now he retweeted something about Yoshida's comments on something, which I'm sure he probably saw and he wanted to highlight, right? So this audience member said, "I'll admit I did not believe PlayStation money had Black Myth Wukong. I thought that the company had to disclose any and all exclusivity deals. They don't. They really don't. In fact, the Crimson Desert one was very interesting because when they actually denied, when Pearl Abyss actually denied or turned down PlayStation, they talked specifically that the deal was to actually go ahead. Here it is. Pearl Abyss reportedly said that if it had accepted the offer, which allegedly included Sony's marketing power and various unique incentives, Crimson Desert would have been exclusive to PS5 for a year with no release on Xbox and with PC distribution rights also belonging to Sony. So basically, they were going to hold and lock the game down. Now, it depends on, in terms of all the different agreements that they may have, but they wanted to block the game from going to Xbox for at least a year. At least. Which could be 3 years, which could be 5 years. So you said, I thought the company had to disclose all this. So now you said, I don't believe the devs outright lied about the Series S giving them trouble. And then you said, we've heard from other devs saying the same thing, and those issues could be literal anything. See, the devs having problems with the Series S is a dev problem. All these other devs that you're probably citing here, most of them, if not all of them, have already solved their Series S issue, and it was all either a skill issue or a logistic issue. In the case of Baldur's Gate 3, it was a logistics issue. They're not as big as everybody else, and their boss, whose last name is, it sounds almost similar to Christian Svensson's last name, but it's Sven. That's how you say it, Sven. And then his last name is Icke. I don't even know how you say that. He came out on an interview and he talked about how, the same ship, trying to ship the game on the same platform, almost caused them to sink their ship because they started out early access on PC and then they shipped to PC and then they could not get their co-op working on the Series S at the time. So they had to get an exemption, and I'm sure with the clause from Xbox, to let the game ship without the co-op on the Series S. But just recently, I think a few months ago, the game was able to go ahead and get Baldur's Gate 3 Series S co-op mode. A lot of people were loading it over. The Series S is trash. That's why it can't run the co-op mode. And I was like, man, most of you really like to say trash without even paying attention to game development. See, go on YouTube and watch yourself at least 2 hours of Unreal Engine optimization talks. Sit in your car on a long drive and just listen to it. Most of it will probably go over your head. It's fine. It goes over my head too. And I've been learning Unreal Engine for almost 4 years now, right? And I'm telling you that the Series S is a quite capable machine. Why? Because the PS4 is also a quite capable machine, and you're seeing developers still leverage the PS4. So here it is. 2 months ago, Baldur's Gate 3 is finally adding split screen co-op on this Xbox Series S. So the developers, either it's a skill issue or they're trying to deflect the scrutiny that people have on them. You said we've also heard that Microsoft has had poor communication with indie devs. That's what you've heard, but that is not the case. A lot of these indie developers, like Inotria's developers, here's what happened with those guys. Those dudes, they went ahead and first of all said that, oh, we're going to not prioritize the Xbox version. We're going to indefinitely delay the Xbox port. Then, when it came down to it, they started to basically hustle and try to see if they could get the game on Xbox as fast as possible. Seems like pre-orders didn't necessarily go as they planned. So what did they do? They raised the stink, and then everybody started writing articles. Xbox, see this Xbox, they have more communication. But nobody remembered that these, and I played the demo to this game, actually. I played the demo to the game. It was available on PC during like a Steam Next Fest or some whatever. And when they realized that no one was going to buy the game on freaking PlayStation and PC based on the pre-orders and maybe whatever they saw, they freaked out. They spazzed. And then everybody jumped on it. You know how Xbox, everything with Xbox, everybody jumps on it. It makes it seem like, oh, Xbox is the worst thing ever. And this is where you're getting this notion from. Because there were the other devs that launched that toy soldier-like FPS where you can run around, or third-person shooter where you can run around like a room or whatever, and it's become a big hit. And it sold a lot of units, and they're now moving the game to PlayStation. Then there's the developers with Stalker 2, who basically reached out to Xbox, and they also got a really good thing going with them and decided not to put their game on PlayStation, that they were going to launch on Xbox first as their console first launch, and then eventually work with PlayStation. So when you think about all of this, this is all just the perception that's been created by fanboys, and many of them exist in the gaming press. You said when they submit their game through Xbox's system, it comes back with an error. The indie devs can send an email and don't get a response for months. Now, admittedly, there were some problems, apparently from what we heard, but I don't know any of the indie developers that's actually came out and put their name in front of it, except these Inotria, cats over here. So you said, here's how I think it went down. Yo, the way it went down is exactly how this gentleman says it went down. You can probably, postulate. You can say, oh, fine, we'll do time is splendid. You won't regret this, blah, 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 blah. But Phil Rosenberg here has already told you how it went down. He not only told you how it went down, he told you who made it go down. And one of them, the one who leads that team, is this gentleman over here. It's not hard to fathom. You know what I mean? Like, it's not complicated. It really is not complicated. It's actually as straightforward as you see it. And that's the entire case of the story. But it's fascinating, though, that at first, when people were saying it, a lot of people were out here saying that they did not believe it. Interesting stuff. Because this is not this is not an unnatural thing for PlayStation to do, to block games from going to Xbox. This is what they've always done. Neck and neck, they would be exactly the same in some instances. And now that Xbox has gone ahead and bought their biggest game, they got to figure something out. And now that developers are starting to see that this whole exclusivity thing is not working out for them, they got to think otherwise. And so the PC launch of Black Myth Wukong basically saved that game, because if they had left it in the hands of PlayStation fans would say, oh, we bought 3 million copies. Isn't that the same thing that y'all did with freaking Final Fantasy 16? And they started going, and now they're basically giving, every day a sermon to their shareholders of how, the exclusivity thing didn't really work out much for them and blah, 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 blah. It's just one of those things where this is how we start to see that the whole thing is starting to fissure. Now, yes, they'll continue trying to, create more and more, opportunities for exclusivity deals. But I'm certain that these studios are going to start more and more trying to basically go ahead and find ways to publish themselves. And this is where it's all coming from. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Talk to me in the comment section. Peace out.